You're listening to Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC podcast. We're glad you're here. Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you on Thursday, May 23rd. RIFC announces the departure of President Brett Luy after just 18 months in the chair. We'll update you on what we know before getting you ready for the game on Saturday against Louisville City in what's shaping up to be a sold-out crowd and perfect weather. Joining me as always is the co-host with the most, Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
I was ready to say fantastic, but maybe with today's news brought me a notch down. All things considered, though, I am doing great. A good friend of ours is going to come visit us this weekend. I'm looking forward to the game, so we'll get to the news here in a minute and talk about that.
What news? I don't know of any news you're talking about.
I think you just spoiled it in the intro.
No shattering news. That definitely did not happen. We'll get into that. We'll bury that a little bit further in so people don't hear the part that they want to hear and then escape out of the pod and not hear the rest. But we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, no, it's exciting. It's going to be a great weekend for soccer, that news notwithstanding. And I'm just excited. We're probably actually not going to be in our normal media function. We're probably going to be fans. So you're going to get two fan times in a row. Like that's exciting.
Going to build up those secret defiance points.
Oh man. At least I'll get on the ranking then by being a fan for the first time ever. Let's get into this news, huh?
Yeah, so it finally happened. You got your luchador card, didn't you?
Listen, I struggled. It was a battle, and stamina won the day. Sweet bidding victory was mine.
You definitely didn't have to harass Craig, right?
No. Although I was surprised I only won by 18 caps. And then the best part of the news, though, all day is that after I won, Craig realized from the card collector app that it's not one of 500, it's one of 4. And he only made them probably because I didn't win the first time. So, I didn't beg Craig to win it, but I think he allowed me to bid on a next level
gave you a second chance.
Yeah, 100%. So thanks, Craig. Check out the card collector app. I need to figure out how do I get to play the luchador card in my daily lineup? Yeah, that should just be a modifier, if someone gets wrestled to the ground, 10% point modification.
Maybe we need to get coach to list them on the bench. Just for show, just list them there.
I love it. Can he be the academy player? He can be the second academy player. But listen, on top of those luchador cards, there's something even better coming on, and that's those foam fingers. We got to see the promotion finally for that. You said it earlier in the week. It's not an anchor.
Unfortunately not.
Well, hopefully they'll get there.
Hopefully one day we'll get one of those.
I actually reached out to one of those promo companies when they said they were doing the foam finger. I was like, man, would it be cool if we did that, right? How much would that cost? And every single one of them was like, no, we have fingers and we can put anything on the finger, but we can't reshape it into an anchor. It's like, what a lost market, what a lost opportunity.
Probably need some sort of custom mold there, and at that point, we don't have the capital for that.
Yeah, if there's any foam guys or gals out there that do that, let's talk shop.
Someone's got to know someone, right?
Exactly. And then just some quick programming changes we want to get out there. One of the themes is actually going through a transformation. So it's the Portuguese Heritage Night. That's actually getting moved from its original date in June to the August 17th game against the Oakland Roots. The club reached out to us today and said that they were making the decision to switch that after hearing back from fans, especially those of Portuguese heritage, that the game day or the match day was actually also on the actual moment in time of a Festival de Portugal that was occurring in the state. So they said, hey, we can't celebrate people that aren't going to be here. We should be able to give them another night to be honored and to be cherished and celebrated as the community that they are. So they're moving that game out to the August 17th date. There was nothing on that night, so it's just a switch. There's no new theme being introduced. That being said, it is pretty close to Gatsby days, so I think people should just show up with lighters and burn things, maybe boats, or come in Revolution-esque clothes, but not, the New England Revolution, the time period.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. Not an MLS podcast. But anyways, it's a great move from the club. They're getting to celebrate then both by letting the Portuguese community celebrate the festival themselves and then come back out for a game. So that's a great way to kind of understand the fan base and what they're asking for and make that adjustment. So really proud of the club for doing that.
Yeah, good call there. You didn't want to try and have people split commitments because it might have not been a great turnout.
Oh, yeah. What, like 25, 50 years of Portuguese heritage versus the first ever theme night? Yeah, it would not have gone well for the club either.
Yeah, so we also had some more Open Cup action Tuesday and Wednesday night. So we still have some USL championships who have made it through. New Mexico United finally knocked off NYCFC 2.
Love to see it happen.
Yeah, because we don't like those two teams. Those are actual feeder clubs.
Could you imagine if they had made it to the final? Like, would they have played in that little rinky-dink stadium with 100 people, or would they have been permissioned to play at Yankee Stadium? Like, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
I don't know. They'd have to pay regular NYCFC fans to go. We also saw Sacramento Republic FC knock out Man Jose in a thriller, so that's always good.
That was a spectacular game. That was fantastic. And now knowing that we tied Sacramento Republic at home, does that mean we can beat any MLS club? If we had gotten our chance, I mean, obviously we couldn't get out of USL 2 or USL 1 and get out of our own way, but I think that means we can take on any MLS team now, right?
Yeah, by the rule of comparison, I think that's how that works.
100%.
Right? Indy 11 knocked out Detroit City FC. I don't know if I feel great about that one, especially because Indy's fan group is a little kind of on the fence there about supporting their club.
Could you see Don Garver saying hey, we recognize you made it this far in the Open Cup. We're elevating you to MLS status. That would be terrible.
We had a few others who were really close. Charleston took it to penalties, and then I don't know. I think that they should have just, you bury it into one of the corners. They started to get a little too fancy, and I think they lost it there. And then Phoenix almost took Seattle. Did you see a picture of that backflip?
I stayed up for the whole game. I was very frustrated because I didn't want either team to win. I wanted them just to both knock each other out.
Somehow they both lose.
Yeah, they played down to 7 men and then the game got canceled, no winner, and then a team previously got brought up.
But when when Seattle's goal scored, he did his celebration, and there's actually a really, really good photo.
Oh, the backflip of him?
Yeah, where he's in midair, still flip. That is an amazing photo. So
actually, I do remember. I was thinking the same thing. I was wow, that's pretty acrobatical there. So that's awesome. Listen, at this point, who do you want to win? I mean, we have to pick a USL side. Are you thinking statistically on the teams most likely to advance, or do you have a underdog? Do you have a favorite now in the USL?
I think Sacramento Republic FC has a good chance because of how good they are. But also, I mean, New Mexico, they have some cool fans. I wouldn't mind seeing them. I think they have a great ownership group there as well too. Either of those teams, I'd love to see it. It'd be kind of, I don't think I want to see it, but it'd be really weird if Indy 11 made it all the way too. Just kind of in the sense of hey, there is a legitimately good soccer team here. You do not need MLS.
But what if that was the fuel that said, hey, okay, we'll hear you now and we'll bring you along as an MLS expansion team?
I would much rather see that happen than the club to just straight up be killed. So at least the fans can go with the club and not have to feel like they betrayed them.
100%.
Right?
But that's why I want New Mexico United to win, because they're just a team out there being quirky and quirky and just having a good old time. They can beat the brakes off of LAFC maybe. They already knocked out the MLS Next Pro. My money, my heart, my soul are in supporting New Mexico United up until the end. Now, if it's between two USL teams at the end, then I'll get more tactical on which team has a better shot. But Sacramento Republic is a failed MLS expansion attempt. Phoenix Rising was an expansion team that tried to go and they failed. And now you've got the likes of Indy 11 trying to get that mark now too. So New Mexico United is the only one standing tall and proud within the Division 2 that they are. So it's New Mexico United or bust.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm down with that.
So let's get into some of this other news. Just when you thought there was nothing else to talk about except for a president or not, there's a couple of things that are going on. And the first and foremost is Breeze Airways, our sponsor, promising to our fans right now that they're not paying us to say any of this. They made this really cryptic post earlier in the week, big announcement coming. And if you've been following the airline, they are still kind of in startup mode, right? They've been working on expanding their presence, working on expanding their value and whatnot, and what they bring to the community. Because we heard the Brett Luy information, I forgot to check in on this Breeze article. I was like, oh god, this is it's gonna double hit today of the negative news. But it was actually good news. So yeah, so they're actually planning on doubling their presence at TF Green over the next 5 years, making Warwick's airport and our favorite little darling of an airport the number one hub for Breeze and one of the largest ones in the United States. It's really interesting because they started with just 132 weekly flights over only 18 destinations, but they keep growing and growing the business. I'm excited because by the time this is done, that'll be 200 weekly nonstop flights, 35 destinations. They're going to go international. They're already sending out for like U.S. territory. Like they already have a Puerto Rico. It's not a nonstop, but like you land in like Miami. You don't get off the plane and then you go down. But the flights were like $120. So like I'm kind of getting really excited. And you're probably asking like, why does this matter? Well, we've been wondering if this was like Breeze's one shot. But if they're almost at the point of profitability, this could be a partner for the soccer club that stays as a, quote unquote namesake for more than just 1 to 2 years. We know they're on a multi-year, but we don't know how long that lasts afterwards. So we could very much see Breeze become the, permanent namestay on these kits for a long time to come. And that's kind of exciting to know that there's some stability and that we're not going to be rotating or guessing who the next sponsor is, unless someone comes in with more money, of course. But we may keep and maintain an airline sponsor for many years to come.
Yeah, Defiance member Logan is actually using Breeze to go visit his family. And he said for a budget airline, it was really nice. So with all the different destinations they're adding, especially some into USL markets, I think we'll have to check that out ourselves sometime.
Yeah, our buddy that's coming out, I tried to get him to take Breeze, but they only have the San Diego flight. It's coming a few weeks after this is opening up, so he got stuck going into Logan because he doesn't believe in connectors, which, whatever. That's a friend problem. That's none of the business of our fine listeners. So anyways, that's exciting news about Breeze. Can't wait to see their success and how that kind of transforms the club and the options we have there. Let's move into some of this other news.
All right, so we got some Hartford road trip news here. The club has identified some of the issues with people pre-purchasing tickets for the game. If you need bus-only tickets or tailgate experience tickets, email tickets@rhodeislandfc.com or call 401-955-RIFC as soon as possible. And we also confirmed with Defiance 1636 that if you are traveling separate from the package, you are more than welcome to come hang out at the tailgate. You just won't get to partake in the food or drink without those experience tickets. And this next week, we'll have Nathan Rollabard from the Blazing Musket on next Thursday's show to preview that game.
Yeah, Nathan's the correspondent that covers the club pretty exclusively, so he's probably the most defined expert on all things Hartford right now, since they don't really seem to have a fan cast or a podcast of any kind of consistency. I know they got some super fans and supporters groups, but their main things kind of seem to have died off in the new year, which, coming off their track record from last year, I could kind of understand taking a break from that.
They had a rough year last year. Maybe if they turn it around, maybe some of that stuff will start to come back.
Yeah. Speaking of people having a rough year, let's get into this. Brett Luy, Presidente excommunicado.
Too soon.
Is it? I mean, he's been out for a while. That's been some of the conversation that we've been learning as we kind of unpack these details. So the Boston Globe announced this morning that Brett Luy was no longer with the team in the capacity of serving as Rhode Island FC's president. We'll kind of read through the press release in a second. But I just want to kind of, before we start that, I hate that they called it a minor league team.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. When it comes to a journalist, I kind of have a little bit higher of an expectation of them to do their research and homework and kind of understand the way the leagues are structured. Minor league is a baseball term. It means a team that has a specific goal to foster talent to give to its, parent club. RIFC does not have a parent club. Our goal is to build a competitive team and try and go out onto the field and win. If while doing that, we develop talent and they become recognized and we ultimately sell them to someone else, like that's just par for the course, right? That brings in money for the team that we can further invest and continue to bring in more talent.
And every one of those players, there's 20 that don't work out, right?
Yeah, and this is a professional team playing against other professional teams who are all trying to do the same thing and win the USL championship. We're not trying to develop, a young hitter who's going to just go up to his other club in like a week.
Right.
You know?
And what was really frustrating is when I called him out on that, he deferred to saying, well, the casual, the normal person that doesn't understand the soccer elite, they'll just understand the minor terminology. And it's like, no, you're a journalist. That's wrong. You are stating the wrong information. Hold yourself to a higher standard, hold yourself to a higher accountability, and educate people. Then, like, that's what your job is as a journalist. You're partially an educator.
If you say Division II, like, that tells people that it is not the top tier, but it also doesn't imply that it is a feeder club.
Right. I feel like the people reading the newspaper, whether it's print or digital, are somewhat smart enough to understand Division II versus Division I. You don't have to defer that there's some dumb idiot that can't understand.
Don't they use a lot of that in college, right? So that would make sense. You have different tiers of colleges, right? So you say, oh, these are Division
But
I.
according to the Globe's reporter, his audience is too stupid to understand what that means.
It's charged language. They do this on purpose.
And that's why, like, I feel like there's a continuing narrative that not all journalists, there's some incredible journalists that cover this club fairly and do a really good job, but there's just this tie-in back to the saltiness of the stadium development, of the deal itself. Like, people cannot and again, the Globe hasn't covered Rhode Island FC in any game, at least on site. They're either getting it from the AP feed or they're getting it from the press release that comes after, and then just kind of morphing that in. No one's showing up. So for the Globe to write anything, like, how dare you? Like, it's just frustrating.
Yeah, they have no vested interest in us.
Yeah.
Just leave us alone.
And then kind of to add more fuel to the fire, this press release that they are quoting, it didn't even come from the club. It came from the Fortuitous Partners Tidewater Investment Group side. And this is something that I don't know if the normal fan knows or is aware of. So, like, to deep dive into this, there's two separate entities when it comes to the management of Rhode Island FC. There is the club operations side, and that manages the front office, everything to do with the team itself and the performance on the pitch. And then there's the Tidewater Stadium side. And while all of that is owned and supervised through the ownership group, including the likes of Brett Johnson and Mike Parkhurst and the rest of them, there's two separate entities that kind of oversee the governance and the facilitation of those bodies of work. Mike Rea, who covers a lot of different things, including some of the political realm, he stands up the work inside the Fortuitous Partners Tidewater side. But he doesn't touch. He did at the beginning, early on. We were working through him when Rhode Island FC didn't have its feet under them. But now that Rhode Island FC does, they are separate entities. They're compartmentalized, and they don't really work like that. It was really surprising to see this announcement not come from the club, and instead come from Mike Rea's group in his consulting firm. I don't know if there's anything there to it, but the fact that, like, this information went to the Globe and it went out for everyone else to read that's attached to the media, I wonder if that is just because Brett Luy is transitioning. And we'll talk about that, because I think that's going to be one of the big things we need to understand and learn more about, especially from a transparency side, given the nature of, like, a thing that happened last year with the Revolution and, like, no transparency within the leadership side. It needs to be discussed. But let's get through the presser that Mike Rea released on behalf of Fortuitous Partners.
Fortuitous Partners chairman and Rhode Island FC co-founder Brett Johnson announced today that Brett Luy has accepted a role as a special advisor to Fortuitous Partners. The development team released the following statement. Brett Luy has accepted a new special advisor role with Fortuitous Partners. He is not involved in day-to-day Rhode Island FC activities in this new role. Brett played an important role as the club's inaugural president. He oversaw the efforts to secure important sponsors, develop a strong working relationship with Bryant University, and build the club's first ever roster. The club expects to name a new president in the near future. David Brady, a senior consultant to the board, will oversee the club's day-to-day operation until a new president is named.
So tell me, is this Brett failing upward or getting fired, or is it neither, or is it both? Like, I've kind of hinted at things today on Twitter. Walk me through what you're thinking by reading this.
Without all the information, it's hard to say, but I would think if this is an internal promotion, right, they would celebrate it more. And at that point, too, within departments, you would almost say, hey, we'll give him to you, but we need to backfill him. At this point, if you are just, like, having him leave, and they also, the way they did it was very unceremoniously. It was like the press release from the club was what, like, one sentence?
If that, yeah.
So,
And it's not even from the club, right? It's again from Mike Rea's team.
well, I mean, like afterwards, there was a press release from the club that was just like a sentence or two.
Oh,
that
that
just,
one, gotcha.
Just
Yeah.
confirmed it. So that means they were not ready to share it.
So according to the Boston Globe, they said that they learned about it yesterday from a leak, and then they asked the club to confirm. And if they didn't confirm, they were going to release that they had heard a rumor that Brett had been removed from his role, and that was the response that the consultant group released. And then earlier today, also the same reporter said that they had learned that this had actually happened last week. So the club had been sitting on this for over a week, which tells me that they didn't want this to get out. They didn't want to communicate that until a backfill had probably been done. So I think you're spot on. This was not planned. If this was planned, they should have had to that point that replacement ready. And instead, we have a consultant from the team, from the group, who's been attached to the organization earlier. There's some of his LinkedIn posts where he was working on the first game day. He was talking about how exciting it was to kind of be there. But now he's steering the ship. He's from Texas, and he's here in an interim fashion until they find this replacement. I talked to Brett at the last home game against Sacramento Republic, and we kind of just stood there very early in the game day before people were even walking in, and we talked for like 15 minutes, and we just what's going on in your world, what's going on in your mind, and he volunteered. It wasn't me asking questions, and he said from his own mouth that there were expectations from the board, from this team, to make sure that we were generating sell-out stadium experiences and putting butts in seats, and that there was some pressure on the fact that only one of the 5 games was a sellout so far. But it's like, we know this. I mean, we're not natives, but we know that it's very difficult to put people in a seat when it's 30 degrees out. Oh, and it's raining. And that happened 4 times because we start our season in March. So we don't know for sure if that's what triggered this incident with Brett. This could have been other performance issues. There could have been other expectations. This could be something that was mutual, or Brett wasn't really in the direction that he wanted to go with this. But we do know that it wasn't any kind of like scandal or policy violation. And because the club's been, I don't want to say secretive, but they haven't told people why. Some people were online going, "Oh, is this did Brett do something that was inappropriate, or like is this pause for concern?" It's not that. There's something related to the performance and the expectations that have been set forth by the board, and they're trying to find a different role for him to fulfill. Obviously, Brett brings a form of talent into this organization. They see his value, and they probably know that if they fired him outright, it would be very bad from the optics perspective.
Yeah, that wouldn't look good.
But there's no way Brett Luy wanted to leave his role as president. Like, he moved his family. He left USL operations to become a president of a soccer team. When we interviewed him, his whole background, his whole pedigree was in soccer. It wasn't someone that has gone from sport to sport. Like, soccer's in his DNA. There's no way, unless they added 2 zeros to his check, there's no way that he went into another role when he could have stayed at the helm of RIFC and at least seen out what would happen in a first-year transformation, right? Like, there's a lot of work that he's put into this. I don't think there's a single human being that would be like, I'm okay with walking away from this now and letting someone else take over and see what those results would shape out to be.
Yeah, if there is any truth to make them being upset about the attendance, I think that's very short-sighted, especially considering we have good weather coming up. The game this Saturday is near sellout.
It's like a tragic irony. Like, Alanis Morissette needs to write a new song line to her song about Brett Luy trying to fill a stadium, getting removed, and then it sells out the day he's gone.
And like, I know not everyone stayed, but for that rainy Charleston game, wasn't it
3,700 people?
3,700. Like, that's kind of insane for the fact that it was 38 degrees outside and it was pouring.
This team is exactly in the middle of stadium attendance performance as a brand new team in the crappiest months of New England weather. And everybody knows that they come alive. They start actually living their lives again after they leave that hibernation cave. And from here on till October, it's just like all bets are off. Everyone's exploring outside activities for the rest of their kind of summer and fall.
And the thing is, too, I don't see how this could be related to on-field performance, because if you talk to any of the casuals, they don't even talk about the team performance. They just talk about what a fun, exciting experience they had, and all the stuff that's going on around it to create an environment. They're not invested into the point where they need to go and see a 4-0 smashing of some random team. You know, they're just like, hey, that was a good time.
Yeah, these fans have been extremely patient with this team. Not one game, and we've had. I mean, let's be honest. Our losses are never. And this is like another interesting thing. Our losses are never like close. Like maybe and the events that happen, they're a little close, but like we're still losing always 3-1. We haven't lost one that's 2-1 or 1-0. It's always 4-1 or 3-1 are our loss lines. The fans are extremely patient. They're extremely tolerant because everyone kind of knows new team. Let's not get our hopes up. This is New England. The attitude is like, until you're in it, I'm not gonna give you that hope, but I'm gonna support and champion along. Except for the trolls that are like starting to mimic like, Kano out, like, which is not a thing. It's not a real thing yet. No one is holding this team accountable to any insane performance metrics. So it can't really be the on-field. It has to come down to the weather and the time of the games. We've also heard, and the club has acknowledged, 7 p.m. on a cold night in March is difficult for people to show up. We saw Defiance's lowest attendance for a game on a Friday night at almost 10 o'clock with playoffs for the Bruins going on. Like, other things are going to get in the way, even for the diehards and the fanaticals. So the idea that like we're not if that's the case and if that's the truth, like it's a concerning thing, and I don't understand why they needed to. This feels like panic to me. Like, that's the other thing. If this wasn't a promotion, like a true promotion, why did we do it now? Like, what do they think is going to come as an indicator to move the needle that Brett wasn't doing, or he was doing kind of okay but not enough? That's what I'll be really curious. Like, if this game's already selling out, did the team suddenly like change under this new leadership and like, okay, we figured it out? Or was it just because it's a 3-day weekend, it's a holiday, and surprise, when you have weather above 80 degrees, people show up outside? Yeah. Like, I don't know.
I think the fact too that they bring in a consultant makes me think that there's some sort of panic or concern from the club about something that's going on. Because generally you bring in consultants when you're first starting out, right? You kind of want to figure out what you're doing. Or if you maybe find yourself in a sense of trouble where things are not going the way they are, let's bring an outside perspective, as opposed to just saying, hey, this person just didn't meet the qualifications of the role that we have, and they weren't, meeting those expectations. Let's just replace them with someone else. A consultant tells me that they want some sort of change within some, like their culture, or just maybe the way that they do things.
100%.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on there.
So what do we know about Mr. David Brady, the consultant / interim man in charge here at Rhode Island FC?
So he's a Houston Texans PA announcer. So, football, same thing, right?
Same. Wait.
Weren't you a PA announcer?
I was a PA announcer. Does that mean I could run Rhode Island FC?
I think you should brush up your LinkedIn. I think you got this, bro.
Do you think at least maybe he could teach me how to be a PA so I could take that job over?
Maybe. He was also an adjunct professor. He's led some customer experience work in livestock and rodeo event planning. Very Texas.
That's very Texas, yeah.
And he's led strategy firms and a regional office of the Red Cross.
Oh, I can't make a joke about that. If he's doing,
hey, that's great work.
Yeah, he's doing good work there.
But I mean, if his main role is a PA announcer, I mean, you moonlight as a PA announcer too sometimes. So
yeah, I dabble in a little bit of everything. But no, I guess the concern to your point is what does a gentleman like this do that can change the shape and the landscape of a club who brought in a USL operations veteran? And again, there's soccer people in charge as ownership. Brett Johnson just won the Premier League with Ipswich Town. He should know what the best looks like on off-field and on-field activation and performance. You've got Michael Parkhurst, one of the natives that we know of in the area, who should be able to be telling this group like where they need to focus whatever efforts there are. And then on top of that, you've got like a really robust group of hardworking individuals. And I mean nothing against David here, but like, what does a Texan from across the country offer that we were missing? Like, to your point of like, what are you consulting on? What needs to change? I'd love to know, because until we know that, like, I don't understand this move. I don't understand it, and until it's made transparent or we see some change, some radical change in how the FO is operating, I cannot figure this out.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to think about this either. I guess we'll just have to give it some time.
Do you think this hurt? I mean, this is all hypothetical now, but do you think that with like the amount of people that maybe aren't native to Rhode Island or to New England, do you think this hurt or helps? Like, does an outsider from Texas, can they solve the problems that someone else couldn't?
I don't think it helps per se. I mean, to be fair to him, maybe he's very good at what he does and
I
can
hope so.
offer some perspective. But from an optics point, like you said, someone from outside, I mean, there's already been some sort of local strife against this club, that we've talked about in the past, that we, at this point, have kind of moved on from. I think this just might resurface some of that.
It's like really not hard to convince a Texan to love football, right? Home of Friday Night Lights. Like, I feel like there's not a lot of effort that goes into thinking that through, but teaching a community how to love a sport when there's other products already here and you've got champions in all the other sports already, you're kind of late to the game. Like, I feel like that's a challenge. And listen, I don't want to beat up this interim temporary, and I hope he does fantastic work while he's here, but some questions have to be answered. And I think the way that the club has handled this, I think this is probably the first time since like the parking lot pass fiasco that they've really like dropped the ball. Like we talked to Defiance, they didn't know this was coming. That's your supporter group. You should probably arm them, prepare them that this is something that's coming.
The Defiance Discord was blowing up this morning.
Oh, it was like someone hit the nuclear option for sure. And again though, but like that was the thing too. Like you saw some of the fans react. You saw some say, "What can we learn? What can we do? How can we support?" And you had others say, like, "I don't have an opinion yet. I just want the facts." So like, it was really fairly balanced. But like, this team is now in an interim leadership group. They probably won't fill this role if they don't rush. Like if they had someone already, named and they just couldn't get them here fast enough. That's one thing, but like I anticipate this is at least 6 to 8 weeks to get like a C-suite member to lead this group. And then also too, like, what does it tell anyone that wants to come in to work for this organization? Like, hey, you could be gone. Like, this is a cutthroat industry. I'm sure that the professionals that work in it understand that, but again, my words, to be sacked, or at least to be taken out of the role you thought you were starting or working in after only 18 months and there's no tangible... I mean, yes, we're in 11th place, but we're 6 draws. We only have 3 losses. Like, you've lost 30% of your games. You've filled up 75% or more of the attendance. I don't know why there's this radical requirement. Like, give it more time. And, like, if Coach is probably getting an entire year, like, why wasn't Brett afforded the same thing? Like, what is going on? We could spin this game all night long, but I feel like this is going to be Rhode Island FC's Bruce Arena moment minus the scandal part of it.
Speaking of Coach, so I don't think there's any association with the team performance, but do you think this could affect or weigh on Coach's mind?
I mean, listen, Coach is a human being. He always talks about bringing in good people. I can't say what he's thinking, but I can tell you if I was the coach and my boss just got fired due to some sort of underperformance or negligence of something, I would take it a little personal when we're not in a higher position, when we don't have a few more wins. Like, it's really easy to internalize, and I think the best people out there, they do that, right? Like, they don't make it about them, but they say, like, what could I do? What could I have done differently? How can I learn from this? How did I contribute to this? I think that's a fair self-assessment, but I also think Coach is a professional. And he's been a sports player. He's been a soccer guy for his entire life, and he's had just as many losses in his life as wins. In fact, he loves to say, like, we're not going to win every game. Well, I think he can shrug these things off. But either way, and I'm sure him and Brett have had conversations, I don't think he's going to let it get to the team. I think he knows that his job right now is to insulate them and make sure that they feel like they're not responsible, because that's the younger group, right? Like, those are the younger minds that may think in their minds, like, oh, this is my fault. Like, I missed that sitter. I didn't score that goal. I didn't defend well that game. Brett Luy Brett Luy gave me my first shot at a professional contract and I failed him. So I think Kano's biggest job this week, besides just getting ready for a very tough opponent, is probably just fortifying with these men, these young minds, like, hey, this is not your fault. This is the soccer world. This is the business transactions. This is the ugly side of how these organizations work. Your job on Saturday is to go win over the hearts and minds of 5,000 plus people and put on the best performance you can put on.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the corporate gears shift and change, and it doesn't affect what the player's goal is at the end of the day, right? To go out there and try and win the game.
Yeah. Listen, we'll continue to offer any news we get, but the fact of the matter is I think this is a bad move, and we're not always going to speak positively of the club. I know we've often get told that we're like the PR people. No, like when there's a bad decision, and this was a bad decision in my opinion, like we'll say it. So if we learn more that we can share, we of course will. And hopefully whatever the outcome is, it benefits the fans first. And there's something that can be told as a positive or a silver lining next time we get to learn more about it.
So I guess we could talk about that game that happened, right?
Oh, man,
do we have to?
Well, it's hard to talk about when Sports Golazo still, after 5 days, does not have the game even available for rewatch, for replay.
Yeah, there must be some sort of contract thing going on where the games that are publicly televised just don't get put up on YouTube the way everything else does.
So I actually reached out to the league and they called me back. There is a contract where there's a period of time they themselves couldn't tell me, and I don't know if it's because the person I talked to didn't know or if they didn't want to state it because they didn't want to get held accountable to the date that they released it. But there is a requirement between Golazo Network, Sports Golazo, and USL to release the full video. And they said by 5 days, but they thought it might be sooner. And then they quietly publish it kind of untagged inside the USL on YouTube channel. But that's not happening. I checked every day of this week, and we exceeded the 5-day portal. And then I went back, and I haven't seen a single one of the Sports Golazo games actually show up. So I don't know what's going on. When I went to Sports Golazo, they said, oh, they exist. You just got to click rewatch, and it'll be in our library. But they're not there either. That's a huge missed opportunity because not everybody can watch the game live. Some people, I imagine, want to, they have to finish their day, and then they want to come home, keep their apps turned off so they don't know the result and then sit down and watch the game. Or they know the result, but they still want to watch it. Or they're weird people that want to talk about it on a podcast a week later. And they can't.
The weirdest.
It just doesn't make sense. So they're aware that it's not working. They're trying to get that sorted, but that's a huge miss. And it's not just Sports Golazo. Then that also means it's the CBS Sports ones and the CBS main network channel ones. Unless you TiVo it and record it, you can't watch it off of streaming.
Have those?
I think so. Roku, I don't know what those things are. On demand, I think, is the cable package option. So that's a huge miss from the league, and I think that's something that they need to immediately get on. I still haven't seen the game other than the highlights. I mean, I was there, I watched it, but I kind of wish I hadn't watched that game, to be honest too.
At least the company was great. It's always a good time hanging out with Defiance. So.
Oh yeah, 100%. If it wasn't for those fans, that would have been an even worse loss on the night.
Yeah, if it wasn't for them, that's one of those ones where you just walk away from the game and just
I'm not a soccer fan tonight.
I'll come back to this later.
So let's talk about the game. We'll quickly power through it because we don't want to run too long. But the formation was a 3-5-2. The big change on the night was Quezera subs in for Sadie. Kind of curious, your thoughts. Is that like a Sadie, you went and screwed up and we don't have confidence in you anymore and Quezera gets the start?
I'm not sure. It seems like a lot of the team right now is somewhat nailed on, but that position keeps being chopped and changed. I don't know what the ultimate goal is for that. I wonder with J.J. Williams coming back to health. We saw Fusan play on the wing.
Oh, it's going to be Fusan.
He played really good.
Yeah.
So, and I think these other, let's just call them fringe players, they have moments where they look good. Quezera actually put in a really good cross early on in the game that Dequa couldn't convert. So, I mean, he clearly has the talent, but it's just not, we don't see it consistently from them.
Yeah, and I would argue for every good moment that Quezera had on the night, he had plenty of bad ones too. Because you're saying, yeah, he had the cross that he sent into Chico. He also had the cross received to him that he couldn't put on target. And it wasn't as athletic as I'm allowed to say to a person that is actually an athlete, it was not that difficult to do. But let's get into this. So Rhode Island FC has now lost 10 points from winning positions in the USL Championship this season. Only El Paso Locomotive, the dumpster diving darlings of the West, have lost more. And then on top of that,
they just got Wilmer Cabrera, so
their fortunes are. We got David Brady, and they got Wilmer Cabrera. Equal trade, right?
So they could be turning around, but we'll see.
So on top of that, we've been talking about, does this team have a 90th minute game management containment problem? Well, Colorado, and again, it was kind of like the game was really over at that point, but Colorado goes and scores a late goal past the 85th minute to just kind of re-amplify this stat for Rhode Island, conceding yet another last-minute goal, bringing them to third worst in the league. So now, because of the number that they have, it's not looking, you can't ignore it any longer. Like I said, Quezera, I don't think he had that great of a game. I think that this is this unsolved mystery of who to put on that left flank. He only had 5 passes in the first half. And when you're trying to be moving the ball forward, trying to create attack, and we'll talk about how they really weren't centrally positioned or available either, that's a problem. That's a big problem. On the positive side, if we want to find the silver linings of that, Jack P, second assist, second game off of a corner. You love to see it. I mean, the man knows where to put balls.
Every corner he took looked dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, we're lucky to have him. I don't even want to think how that game would have looked without him.
Frank Nodarce scored his first goal with Rhode Island FC, and this is a great fact. It's his first goal also since 2022. Guess which team he scored against last in May of 2022?
The Switchbacks?
Switchbacks, yeah. So he's got their number apparently. But again, like we saw the middle collapse. We saw just 16.8% of the attack moving centrally out of the middle of the field into the final third. Like that's like you bring in Jack P. We see what he does in Sacramento. I think the number was triple that, to be honest. And then the next game out, the next outing, you see it less than 20% of your attack. Like we just fell back into the normal routine prior to when Jack signed.
It just must have been low tide. There's nothing going on through that midfield there.
Low the tide. And then, I thought John Morrissey deserves a lot of credit. USL Tactics, again, if you don't follow him,
he is phenomenal.
I don't know what he does on his day job. I don't even know how he has time, but he's incredible. He wrote an article over the weekend called The Road to Perdition.
I love that movie.
Great movie. Great. It's based on a comic?
Yeah.
Great stuff. And he identified the same things that we've kind of been calling out the entire time. So we've got some John Morrissey-esque abilities to kind of call this, it looks like, but he dropped 2 insane facts. One, Rhode Island FC is a top 10 offense by XG per game. And you've been talking a lot about the quality of chances and the creations that have been happening with that XG. We saw the highest one on record against Sacramento Republic, a team that, was, and it still remains supposedly very difficult to crack open and beat. But then it's this other stat. Rhode Island FC has the 4th worst actual goal scoring record in the league. We're like, usually when you have bad goal scoring, it's because they're not getting fed. They're not getting the ample opportunities. They can't convert it.
And
this is bad.
This is the league too, not just Eastern Conference. So that's out of all 24 teams. So we're in the top 10 offense. We create lots of chances. But the bottom 4 of actually scoring. I mean, seeing these stats makes complete sense, right? You think about all the amazing chances that this team has created that have just kind of get fluffed and missed or whatnot.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if that's formation. I don't know if that's talent. The weird thing is we've seen this team at unbelievable heights. Like they have soared, and they've taken my breath away in watching them. Like I didn't think I would get that kind of level of soccer at the USL level, and I've seen them achieve it. But then we just kind of seem to like rebound back to the mean or the medium of like these like, what are we doing with the ball? What are we doing with our possession or with our forward minding attack strategies? That midfield, they've got some answers. They got it. I mean, it's a whole team problem, right? You've got the defenders obviously giving up 3 goals. You've got the offense getting all these chances and not converting it. But then in the midfield, you had 21 passes go through, 18 were sideways or backwards. Only 3 went forward. In Colorado, against Colorado Springs, a team that like everyone was beating up until 3 games ago. Now we're the 4th game on their streak as they get hot. That's not good. They can't be keeping us in our final third or us in the high press and then us not being able to move the ball forward. Like, that's not how we're going to win games.
Yeah, that was a weird game. I kind of don't understand what happened the second half there. We started the game fairly well. It kind of looked like a continuation of the last game, right? It wasn't perfect. There was a few misplaced passes here and there, but generally they were moving the ball with purpose and creating chances. And then we got to the second half, and it was.
I want to ask, because I went on air declaring that altitude wasn't a factor. Was altitude a factor here? Like, or was it us playing down to our opponent? Like, is that even fair since Colorado beat us up and they're on a beating streak?
Yeah, they are potentially on the up and up. I think when we say play to the opponent, I think that's the team maybe looking at their position in the table and not necessarily where that trend is, because all of the points that they accumulated were from the last 3 games or 4 games.
Yeah.
And before that, everything was a loss.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe even we underestimate them. Maybe they are a better team than we thought they are.
So what's worse then? We play to the level of the opponent, or we're now misjudging and mischaracterizing and underestimating our opponents? Like, which one would you rather have as a manager of a team? Neither, obviously.
Yeah, neither. I guess I'd rather play to the level of the opponent than underestimating, because that could always turn out bad for you. Whereas, we saw a really fantastic performance against Sacramento, right? So when the big boys come to town, we turn up. But when we don't think that they are a good team, we just kind of we got this. But it could just be too that maybe it's hard to pick up away results in this league. And if the team can figure out the home form, you try and get a draw or maybe sneak a win here or there on the away wins. And if most of them just kind of don't go your way, you win all your home games. I think that still puts you in a good position to be successful. The problem is that's not happening.
I don't disagree. But this, and I don't even know if you can say we do better away or home, because while we have one extra loss on the road, we have our only win on the road, right? If anything, we're guaranteed a draw at best and maybe a loss because we don't have a win at home. I just don't know what this team. I don't know what this team needs to put on a complete performance. We talked about the offense, we talked about the midfield, but then the defense. Every single one of those goals was due to just dumb mistakes from the defenders. Gabby Alves runs into Frank Nadarce. They combine. They collapse. Demus picks up the ball. I mean, there's friendly fire basically on the field. Demus picks up the ball and converts it into a goal on a really just bonkers shot.
Near post OP. Yeah.
And then on the second one, Yao comes in, tries to kick a ball away and own goals it. So Krifa just wanted to make sure he scored 2 consecutive games in a row. I don't know. And what's crazy is did you watch the Yao goal in slow motion on the Colorado switchback feed?
No.
So you probably saw either in the moment or you saw the replay where he's backpedaling and it looks like he just takes the ball and just dumps it into the net. You're like, what are you doing? But there's a slow motion side shot that one of the people from the switchbacks media, and they slow it down. It's so disrespectful. You see the ball come in, Koke can't get to it, and the way you see Yao position his foot, you can tell he thinks he's clearing this ball. And it just hits on the inside of his boot, and the way he swings it, he's thinking the ball's going out, and then you see the ball go through his leg and go the complete wrong direction because he whiffs on it, and you see him. You just see the shock in his eyes, oh no, it's bad.
I like Yao. He is like a Mack truck. He just runs through people, but when he has to turn his back to goal and run back, I'm not that confident. He tends to make some mistakes here and there. I think he is a very solid backup. I think we're really missing Grant Stoneman. I think.
Well, you're gonna have to miss him for a while because even he's 4 more weeks, and then you're out for 8 weeks. What is that? 2 weeks, 3 weeks of fitness to get back into the squad.
And the club hasn't even been forthcoming with what
the deal
is. But in a perfect world, if we have everyone healthy. I think your starting center backs would be Nodarse and Stoneman, right? And Yao can pick up some minutes here and there, but the fact that we've had to rely on him for like almost every minute of the season, it feels like at this point, he's just got a few mistakes in him.
We've talked about Connor McGlynn and the problem he'll bring when he's healthy and ready to enter the squad, which we'll allude to. But if it's easier to drop Clay back into the center back line, which he's demonstrated he can do you sacrifice your most potential firepower in the midfield to get a more solid defender?
Possibly, but the only other issue I would want to bring up is the fact that the game was 2-1. We gave away a stupid penalty. Right? If you continue at 2-1, there's always a chance.
I asked Seth the ref if he thought that was a penalty, and he wasn't sure if I was joking or not.
I've seen it. I remember in the lead up to it that Turnbull was getting kind of beat up. There were a few challenges that while he was shepherding the ball out a few times, he kind of got thrown down and got pushed around. So I understand the frustration. You can't let that show on the field like that.
I thought you just were going to say you just can't do it in the box. Do it anywhere else on the pitch, but not the box.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately was very blatant. He was lucky, I think, not to be sent off there because he was already on a yellow card.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Listen, this game just completely devolved into chaos, into frustration. Whatever it was, I think at the end of the day, my biggest frustration is that this was a completely different team than what we saw against the Republic just a week prior. And going back to that pendulum analogy that I've been throwing out a couple times this season, I just like to see this team I would have rather have seen an amazing performance and then it come down to like a 1-1 draw again. Like, I hate draw kings. I do, but like at the same time, so many people after the game were like, we kind of missing that now. Like, would we rather bring that back? Of course you would rather have that than a loss.
Yeah, we'd love to keep the draw kings meme alive.
Yeah. But like but seriously, like, it's more disappointing for me to see them kind of fall back and completely go back to something that we thought we had moved past. Whatever this team needs to figure out in this identity, they also need to string together like 3 solid performances in consistency. Maybe that's part of the formation and figuring out who's on that left flank. Maybe that's the return of JJ Williams in the starting lineup, or maybe it's Connor McGlynn. I don't know how much more tinkering is left to do with a squad like this. But you can't go from lights out performance against the Republic and then get pantsed and kicked out of Colorado like you did. Like, it just, we need consistency. And look, that comes with a new expansion team. That's the things that need to settle and gel. Yes, but hurry up and do this already.
Before we move on here, did you hear at one point someone in the crowd yelled to one of the players that you're a bum? And then after that, he said, "I bet you didn't call your mom on Mother's Day."
So there's a trend started by a San Francisco Giants personality, and he's a fan that sits in the bleachers, and he wrote out like 25 pages on a Google Doc of mildly insulting, abrasive insults to tell outfielders, and he started. It's been kind of viral, but yeah, it's like, I bet you don't pay taxes on time, you bum. Like, I bet you're the guy that eats the last piece of pizza at a pizza party, you bum. So those are great. I love that it's moving into the sport of soccer, and like, it's a fun way to like not make it like personal or like get too like weird or even like worse, like racist or something like that.
Yeah,
I'll take those any day of the week.
It's not super offensive. It's kind of dumb fun. It's just, let's move on here then to the table standings. So RIFC now has 9 points. Or I should say still has 9 points on a 1-6-3 record. 1 win, 6 draws, 3 losses. So are we still the Draw Kings? We still have more draws.
Until we have more of something other than draws, result not currently mattering, yes, we are still Draw Kings.
Okay, that's fair.
I think we still lead the league in draws, right?
Probably.
We got it. If we're 9 points and we have that many draws, yeah, we have to, because we're 11th place, Jason. We're in the basement of the East.
So yeah, that brings us down to 11th place. Ouch. Currently have the same amount of points as Hartford, but they're ahead due to the amount of wins. That's how they do the tiebreakers. But some perspective here. The reality is that besides Charleston and Louisville, who is our next opponent, no one in the Eastern Conference is establishing themselves this year so far. A few positive results jumps us right up the table. The difference from 12th place to 3rd is 10 points.
Don't put that hope on us right now. We just lost our president today. Don't you do that to us, Ricky Bobby.
Hey, we still have our coach. In Kano, we trust. I'm just saying that, a result or two, if we start to kind of figure out what it is that we're doing, maybe like I had mentioned previously, at least start getting better results at home, we can creep our way up the table. Lou City, 7-1-1 record.
I wish we had that record right now.
The only loss they have is against Charleston. Their draw actually just came this last weekend against the Las Vegas Lights. We watched that game. I don't know how that happened. That was a kind of a crazy game.
So we beat the Lights.
By comparison here, we beat the Lights. So I think we should beat Louisville City then. We're better than them.
And then if you expand it,
Ergo,
we beat them 2-1. 4-2 is going to be the prediction on the week, right? Because that's they drew. So then we just double what we did to Las Vegas.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, math.
Lock it in.
You got to respect math.
Go to Vegas.
No, don't go to Vegas. Beat Vegas.
Well, I meant with the bets. Or
you don't even have to go to Vegas anymore. We should like every other podcast, every other sporting club. We should just get a DraftKings or Sporting Bet Online. Yeah, like all the casinos around here, like they all have their apps. You just have to register and put your information in. Like we should start betting on USL teams.
There we go. So with 22 points, they're second in the Eastern Conference on a 4-game unbeaten streak, averaging 3.11 goals this season.
Disgusting.
And have only lost, like I said, the one game against Charleston Battery.
So what's even crazier is since this club went on their unbeaten streak of the last 4 matches, they've outscored their opponents 12-2. So like they're putting on clinics at each of these games.
They're putting the hurt on people even before that.
And of the club's 7 wins, 5 of them they've won by 2 or more goals. So these aren't even close matches for Lou. They're just blowing their opponents out. They've got the highest amount of goals scored in the championship right now with 28 goals scored. They have a 19 goal differential. We don't even have 19 goals as a club.
Oh man. This is gonna be a rough one, isn't it?
Hey, I've got the faith. So let's get into this injury wise. Yeah, we didn't go to the media days tomorrow, and we're not going. We should go though for the whole Brett thing. I'm sure Kana wants to have to speak to that. I feel really bad. He's going to get more people showing up more than ever because of that. That's what draws people out.
Just ask a bunch of dumb questions.
Yeah. Did Brett Luy pick the formation in the last game? Is that why? Just stupid stuff. All right, but let's get into this. Injuries. So we know Amos is still out. We know Grant is still out. We haven't heard any other additional injuries that have been picked up since Colorado or training. But by timelines, we should be able to expect to see Connor back in the rotation. He's hit his milestone unless there was some development last week that he could not continue on his road to recovery. So he should be available for selection. I don't think he gets a start.
Yeah, no, he'll probably, similar to when J.J. Williams came back recently, we'll probably see a cameo of him.
Yes, yeah, 100%. So then in the formation, 3-5-2, that's what it's going to be. But we've got the theory. I think, and you agree, right, that Williams he's now played he got 35 minutes against Colorado. Was that right?
Somewhere around there, 30, maybe 20.
Okay, so he got 15. Now he got 20 to 30, and now do you think he gets 60, and then they pull him out?
Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking too. Maybe give him 60, and then have him sub out for someone late in the game.
But do you think he gets the start?
I think it's time.
So then Fuson is the missing piece on the left. The experiment continues with the Fuson on the left?
Yeah, I think that is what they should do. And then what you can do when you need to take Williams out, you can push Fuson up top and then
Quazero or Sadie, whenever you want.
Yeah. And then we'll probably at some point, maybe one of those center 3, Holstead, Jack P, or Marky Bar, we'll probably see McGlynn come in for maybe 10-15.
That could be the indicator. That's something to watch where, depending on who coach subs, unless they're having a really bad performance, whoever he's thinking about replacing like for like, that could be I want to potentially see you swap with this person if you earn the spot. So that'll be something to watch. Is there anything else you could do with this lineup? I mean, I feel like we have the talent. I feel like we have the ability here. Is this just getting goals in the back of the net now?
We mentioned earlier those stats from John. Top 10 offense, we're just not scoring goals. So I think goals kind of solve games at this point. If we can just start converting those chances, then I think that we will see the results come.
Is there anything else you would do as coach?
That I don't know. I mean, I am not a athlete. I don't know what runs through their head when they're like, do you think they're beating themselves up because they know they probably know this, right? They know we've created a ton of chances, but we have not scored a lot of goals.
Yeah, Turnbull, even Jack on his first day, they said in the previous home game, post game, we're putting the ball exactly where it needs to go. We're just not getting it into the net. And I think at the time it was really easy to like put that all on Sadie and the missed opportunity. But there were other times in that game, and there have been other games where we don't convert. And so yeah, I guess I'm just thinking more like do we need to experiment a little deeper? Like, is this now, do we bring in the likes of Colin Smith and like give Turnbull a different position on the field, or give him a break? I don't know. Like, Isaac Anking, does he get a start? And we didn't even mention, by the way, Isaac Anking gets the call up to the Puerto Rican national team. So congratulations, awesome. Isaac, on that call up. Does that warrant, like, do you not medal? Do you just see if you can get back to that 60 minutes against Sacramento Republic?
Yeah, I think that is the goal there. And then from there, if we can get a consistent run, we don't have a lot of injuries, and there still is problems after, say, 3 to 5 games, then maybe he has to think about like what the larger problem is at hand. But like you said, we saw some really good performances from this team. It's just, can we see that consistency, and can they maybe get out of their own head and just put the ball in the back of the net like they know how to do?
Or do they? We'll never know until we know. So let's get into this formation for Louisville City. They're in a 3-4-3 now. They were experimenting a little earlier in the season, but they seem to, like, again, just the worst time to pick up a team like this after pantsing Hartford, after, well, I mean, this draw, I don't even know what to kind of make of it from them. It's definitely their outlier game. But they're in a 3-4-3. They're figured it out. They've unlocked it. They've got the same players now in like a static rotation. They're running. They're cooking on all cylinders right now. You've got Damian Loss in net. Sorry, you got Damian Loss in goal. You've got Sean Tosh. Is it Tosh? I'm saying Tosh. Toch?
I think so.
Toch. 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 What did you say? Toch or Toch? Toch. I'm going to say Toch. So you got Sean Toch out on that right kind of center back line, Arturo Ordueñas in the center back role, and then Kyle Adams on that left back line. All three of their defenders, by the way, averaging above 7 on FOTMOB right now. Like, they're only defenders in the league that are doing that. So that's great. And then in that midfield 4, you got Aiden McFadden, Taylor Davila, Elijah Widener, and Jake Morris. And then up top in the front 3, you've got Adrian Perez, Wilson Harris, who's second place in the goal scoring for the Golden Boot, and then Jorge Gonzalez. And by the way, one of the players we're going to talk about, not even in the starting lineup. He comes on as like a lethal substitute, like a super sub. So that's even better, right? Just stacking this team full of talent. This is a terrifying team on paper. This is a terrifying team on the day. But good news, if they're a terrifying team, we're going to play up for it, right? We're going to wake up. It's a big weekend. We're gonna pull this out.
I hope so. I feel like this point, like, I don't want to jinx it, but that seems to be our MO. We play to the level of our opponent.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Team's really fascinating because they're not a complex team. They're just a good team. There's not a lot of intricate, like, amazing strategic tactical sorcery going on here.
Simple things.
Yeah, and they do it really well. So this team doesn't move the ball very centrally. Like a lot of opponents this year, they like to start wide and then kind of move in. a majority of their goals have been plays where they shoot it up the wing, and then all they do is a very simple cutback or to the top of the box cross, and someone from the team, and when I say someone, I mean like they just alternate who's going to put on the shooting boots for the day, but someone from the team comes up and collects the ball at the top of the box and just takes a very comfortable shot at distance. In just the recent game against Hartford, they scored 5 of 7 goals. That's right, 7. One of them was offside, so we got to be technical, I guess. But 5 of the 7 goals against Hartford, just like this formula. Like it was just get it up, cross it centrally to the back of the box. This strategy is pulling all the defenders keeper side, because there's 1 or 2 target forwards that are like keeping people honest and saying like, hey, you have to mark me, you have to cover these zones. I'm danger close to scoring a goal right next to the keeper. So it keeps stretching all of these teams to move towards the goal. And then there's just a player waiting in the wings at the top of the box unmarked, and they collect it one time. Either they set or they just shoot. And listen, they're comfortable shooting. Not everything goes in, but they'll shoot, and then they'll shoot some more. And then it's just a game of numbers.
We actually saw that in the game against Las Vegas. That game kind of turned into a shootout. Las Vegas actually had a lot of good chances as well, too. They were just going up and down the field, just taking shots.
Yeah.
And that night, maybe it just didn't work out for them.
But so my fear with a back three is you have to contain any people moving goal side. So in that back three, this is not going to be a game of Nodarse, Yao, and Alves. This is going to be a game of can Holstead and can Ibarra clog the midfield and contain those shooters. If they keep doing what they've done against every other team, can they contain them? Can they lock them down and make sure that this doesn't happen against us? And the problem is it's not man marking. It's not like focus on this one player, he's the threat. They've got 10 different players that have combined for 28 goals this season. Of the USL, we talked about Harris being he's number 2 right now, but 3 players total are occupying top goal scorers in the top 20 in the league. Like, we don't have one in the top 20. Like, that's insane. So they're good at give and goes. They're good at running into space. They primarily on the defensive side use a high press, so they like to force that turnover high up the pitch. But like they can also just play out the back, and they seem to have a really good system with those wingers that they just sit back. They try to make the ability to connect and move the ball up within 3 to 4 passes, and then start their crossing game all over again. This is a very complete team. They don't do anything flashy. They don't do anything crazy, but they do the basics really well. That being said, they're not invincible. They did lose to the Battery, but the Battery is another top team in the league, so it's kind of like an even wash. But they did tie against Vegas, and Vegas was in control for a majority of that game, whether you call it luck or they just got ahead. But the game that I actually was the most interested in, I went back and watched. Loudoun still lost, but Loudoun held them to 1, and Loudoun isn't exactly a team that's making a lot of splash. They're not a bad team by any means, but I would say of the teams that have been played against them, we're the most close to Loudoun so far in terms of ability. So if Loudoun can keep them to 1, that should be something that coach needs to consider, is like, how do we make sure we don't get 7 scored on us on the night?
Not only Loudoun, potentially maybe the worst team in the league, El Paso, also held them to 1. It was a loss, but we see Indy put 3 on them. So they aren't infallible. You can score against them. It's just, if it turns into a shooting match, though, they might, outgun you at that point.
Yeah. Listen, this we are not going to get out of this game without being scored on. I'm going to tell listeners now, it's going to happen. Louisville City has scored in each of their last 14 games in the USL Championship. They scored 37 goals in that run. This is not a team that's not going to put one past Koke at the end of the day. It's just something that we're going to have to agree with. By the way, speaking of Koke, congratulations to him. Announced the pregnancy of his first child with his wife. That was really fun, exciting news. A little bit of positivity to put out there in the world. That also being kind of a conversation. Lots of people on the Discord saying, is it time for Lee to make a return? Like, come on, guys. Like, you know better. Listen, this game's going to be rough, but I am not negative about it. I think we will, at minimum, draw this team. I think we'll draw this game. Draw Kings return triumphant. But I think we might be in store for a win. I don't know why. I've got no data that backs that up. I'm coming off of a really bad loss. Maybe I'm on a pendulum swing myself. I feel like maybe we could get this win in.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the players and then like bring my emotions back down to a level that makes sense?
Yeah, let's talk about how amazing their players are, and then we'll see how we feel about this afterwards. So Taylor Davila here, a central attacking midfielder from Sherman Oaks, California. He played last year with RGV Toros, RIP. Before that, he spent some time with Ventura County FC. So far this year, he has 3 goals and 1 assist. But the big number here is chances created with 22. He is in the top 2% of the league in creation. Oh, man, this team. An all-around great passer of the ball as well. So if he's given too much time on the ball, he's going to put the hurt on us.
Well, it's okay, because if they can't figure out Davila, they've got Wilson Harris to deal with. He's another California-born player. Spent most of his time with Louisville, along with Sporting Kansas City too. He's made a few appearances for the parent club as well. And guess what? He's collected 8 goals and 1 assist so far this year, including 3 on a single game. So he's already got a hat trick on the season. He's created 10 chances. He's ranked in the top 10% for fouls committed. So not only does he like to score goals, but he likes to score on those yellow cards. Like if he's collecting those like Pokemon cards, he's getting them all.
Maybe we can use that to get under his skin.
I mean, we did that to Ricky Alba in the Lights game. So like you saw him come completely apart, and he got a yellow early, which kind of didn't allow him to do some of like the diving or the simulation that maybe he would want to do to try to stretch his game. So anything is possible in that world. But you've got the number 2 goal scorer currently in the Golden Boot. So that's Wilson Harris. What else do we got?
We got Ray Serrano here, born in Washington. He spent some time with the Sounders youth team as well as the Tacoma Defiance before making his way to Louisville. He plays a right winger, right midfielder. So far, he has 5 goals and 3 assists. If you guys haven't noticed, Louisville is a goal machine. Another great passer and chance creator, but he's also a skilled dribbler, can get past his opponents. And he's got a few fairly high defensive skill stats as well too. So
and he's a substitute. He has not made the start in the last 5 games. So he is someone, he's a weapon coming off the bench. Like, are you kidding me?
I think we could have done in the players to watch just the whole team.
Well, let's get to these last 2. Then you've got Elijah Widener. He's a 5-year veteran of the club. I can't believe this guy's been with the club for 5 years. He's on a multi-year contract that he just re-signed. So this is like Mr. Louisville City right now. He's the older brother of I hate to say this, but the more famous Josh Widener, who joined Benfica last year as USL's highest player sold in league history. But listen, Elijah's just as good. Josh is a defender. Elijah's a midfielder. He's coming off 2 goals and an assist so far this year. Absolutely lethal in the aerial duels. And he's kind of that brute force in the midfield that leads to the tackles, the recoveries, and the conversions that allow Louisville City to maintain their high press. So again, he's not doing super fancy stuff. He's just becoming a wall, stopping things, redistributing, and then he's in the right place to take those shots at the top of the box. He's someone that we're going to also have to watch out for tomorrow.
And then to round it out here, we have Sean Tosh, center back who's created 11 chances. A center back has created 11 chances.
Just stop it. Just.
This team
I'm trying to stay positive, dang it.
North Dakota born. He's been with the team since 2017. Another
this team is stable. This is why they've dominated the league. I mean, they're a top 4 finisher. They're one of the big 4 of the total league. They've got the Lynn family money. Like this is what stability buys you. This is what you get.
Yeah, proficient at aerial duels, decent passer. He's even got a goal and assist to his name. So
so what does Rhode Island FC
got this, guys? Let's do it.
So what does Rhode Island FC need to do to get this right in this game?
Okay, so at this point, like the team plays to the level of their opponent, for better or worse. That's not something we can easily change. It's going to take some time. Louisville being one of the best teams, I expect a good performance from the guys. But we need to change these draws and losses into positive results. So this team needs to remain astute. We've seen way too many mental lapses that cost them the team. Like, don't give away penalties. Like, remain it when it's the 90th minute. Like, we need to just shut it down. You see that ball, just boot it to the the other end of the field. Like everyone needs to kind of be on it, as they say. And I think we could then put that result together because we've seen this team play really well. It's just not for a full game.
I mean, listen, I am remaining positive. I think that this club just needs to tap back into what they did against Sacramento. I think of all of the glaring opportunities, which we've talked about tonight. I do think that defense is the first thing that matters. It's going to be impossible to keep this clean, but I think that if they can keep their composure and play to their strengths and be patient, I think that we can get a little scrappy and surprise ourselves and surprise the fans, and at a minimum draw, but maybe also go all the way and win this. I would not, if after what I saw at Las Vegas, anything is possible.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of positivity, Thought Mob, we 50% chance say us to win, 42 Louisville. Are all the people voting? Is it just Defiance? Or
I mean, it's that, or it's people on sports betting, and they're trying to inflate the percentages so that they can get the better spread and get the sure thing.
Maybe, because Louisville has a pretty big fan base, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean they've got a 20,000 person stadium, and they're putting 10 to 16,000 numbers on average. Yeah.
So hey, I'll take it. Like I said, I don't know why, but I have a good feeling about this one.
What's the scoreline? You're up right now. You're still winning 4-3 for the year.
All right, I'm gonna go with 3-2.
Oh man!
Just like Coach said, we're gonna score a lot of goals, and we're gonna let in some. This is definitely a team that can score on us. So
I know I said I'm positive, but I'm positive Draw Kings makes its triumphant return. I'm going 3-3.
Oh, hey, I'll take that too.
I think it'll be 3-3, and I'm just hoping we score last. I think that will still feel like a win. That'll
90th plus 7.
Oh yeah, 90 plus 10. Memorial Day weekend. It'll be something to watch. Speaking of, by the way, I've heard. I don't know if this will happen, but I've heard we may get a flyover.
Oh.
I don't know. I know they were trying to do something, but it's very, very. There's a lot of details that go into getting a flyover. You have to reserve the airspace. You can only have a flyover from one military unit per request per season. So I don't know who they used in the opening when the Black Hawk came by. All of our military people, which by the way, we can't wait to see anyone. We hope at the game, anyone that has actively served or is no longer serving, or if you had a family member that served or was lost in something to that regard, come by, share your stories. We love talking. We love learning more about you and your family. So, just want to honor where we can on the day, but then also kind of enjoy soccer at the same time. So would love to hear those stories, but it should be, even if the game's not the best, the weather's going to be great. The company's going to be fantastic, and the human beings around us are going to be superb. So let's get into these questions. I don't want to talk about these games anymore. I don't want to talk about Brett Luy. I think the listeners, by the way, they really shine through today because we put the mailbag out as the Brett Luy news dropped, and only one of them really wants to talk about Brett Luy. Everyone else is just change this conversation. Yeah, so I really appreciate all of our fans today kind of, reading into the understanding that it was not a great day for news.
All right. Timmy S. here wants to know, if you had to pick today, who would you guess from my current roster will be on the team next year? Or maybe a guess how many or what % of players will carry over to the next year. I'm curious because I've heard there's a lot of roster turnover in the USL.
So we know the multi-year contracts, and that is Koke Vegas, JJ Williams, and Connor McGlynn. Everyone else is, we don't know. I would imagine that if this team was making smart acquisition pickups, that they were doing so with club option abilities. I think the players that have club options most likely are the ones that they went out and bought. Actually, I should also say Chico's got to be on a multi-year for what we had to spend to get him and trade him over.
Yeah, that sounds like that would make sense.
But any of the USL players that were going to stay with their teams that we enticed or recruited over, they probably took a chance because they wanted to go somewhere else or they got a bigger payday. I think with the college kids and the MLS Next Pro group, I think we brought in those add-on clauses so that we could sell them if they did really well. So to answer your question, it's a little difficult because like Fusan's having a lights out year. Clay Holstead having an incredible year. I could see this team wanting to keep them, but I could also see like the crew knocking, going, hey, like you did a lot of really good work with them. We'd like to take them off your hands, right? And at the end of the day, this team is always looking to make a deal that makes sense for them. And if Coach and his team can find the next version of Clay Holstead or Noah Fusan, then I would say that in the positive sense, those players aren't long for this world. In the sense of underperformers, that's also the beauty of year-to-year contracts in a negative and sad way, where we get to just be like, hey, you didn't have what it takes. We're sorry, but we're moving on in a different way. That's the nature of soccer there too. So, keeping an eye on those underperformers or those players that aren't getting enough minutes because they're not truly impacting the squad, unless they're doing it out of a kindness and kind of taking like the lowest pay possible, and then they provide a different value in the locker room and on the practice pitch, it's hard to quantify what that would be. But I would say right now you're looking at 4 players for sure that have multi-year contracts, and then it's really just down to like, how do you keep an MLS veteran like Turnbull? How do you keep the MLS Next Pro team like Holstead and Fusan? But like Jack P, gone. 100% he's gone. Jackson Lee, he's gone. Unless Koke leaves first, Jackson Lee, like you just can't keep a keeper that good. He'll go to another USL team to get the starting role, or he'll get picked up by MLS. Like I don't see them sticking around because they'll have better opportunities.
If I had to just kind of guess, I'd say maybe somewhere around the 60 to 70% of the team I think will kind of carry over to the next year. Like you said, some of those names like Jack Peniotu, I don't see how we hold on to him unless he has a like phenomenal drop off where they think, okay, he still needs more time down here.
Or he falls in love with the magic that is the state of Rhode Island and never wants to leave.
Sign me up.
He doesn't even play the away games. He only stays at home.
Injected into my vein.
So Matthew Jean writes in, since there's nothing really going on with the team right now, hint, hint, will Jason go back to saying, when asked how is he doing, will he just say good, or is he still workshopping another answer?
It's still a work in progress. No one was actually complaining about me just saying good. It was more of a self-imposed, like, can I do something different here?
That's brave of you. We're all works in progress, right? Like at the end of the day, we're always changing. That's really profound of you.
I'm always just trying to put my best out there for you guys, So, today I was almost fantastic, but the club head was like, "Hey, even keel Jason, you got to bring it down a little bit there. Stay in your lane." Ryan Healy here wants to know, topical question: what's your favorite color?
So, it's funny, like there's a part of me that wants to say amber and blue, but I hate the color amber. Fun fact.
How dare you?
There's a song from 311.
Oh, don't.
And I hate that band.
I
just did that to you. Yeah.
Can you cut this out?
Nope,
cut this out.
I'm not doing it. And now you have to live with that too.
Jimmy, roll back the tape. I didn't want to be reminded of this.
Yeah. And as soon as I started, because he wrote like, why don't you say amber and blue? I mean, I don't actually hate the color, but I hate that song and I hate that band so much that I can't ever say that.
Remember that stupid thing I told you about 311?
Yes. Yeah. Ask in the Discord if you want to know. We can't share that on the airwaves here. So I'm gonna go with my favorite Power Ranger from when I was a kid. I'm gonna go with green. Don't know why, but it's green.
I mean, my name is Jason. I am the Red Ranger, but red is not my favorite color. It's blue. Always has been.
That's the Man City in you. Tim McDuff writes in, have you driven by Tidewater Stadium recently? And when you did it bring a tear to your eye seeing our home starting to look like a home? And then also as a follow-up, have you found a location to tie up the raising anchor yacht on game days?
Great question. Actually at first I was like, I haven't been over there in a while. But then I remembered last weekend I made one of those IKEA trips and we did drive by and I saw it.
Dog, what are you talking about? We drove to Boston to go to Electric Callboy where we ran into another Defiance member who was living the time of his life, which he owes us the picture that we took on his phone.
Oh, yeah.
At Electric Callboy. So, Andrew, still waiting to see that photo on social media.
I think I've actually probably driven by there like 3 times and just forgotten. But I have seen a lot of pictures, and I am very happy with the progress. When it comes to our yacht parking, we were working through something with Louis, but I think that
Oh my
we're gonna have
gosh,
to
did the
start
yacht
over.
deal just die with Louis? Oh
I don't
no.
know. We're gonna have to start over now with this new president here. This really threw a wrench into the deal. So hopefully they still see some value in that for us. I don't know. FQB here saying is everyone is aware of the repositioning of former RIFC President Brett Luy. Why did the FO not beat the media to this announcement? Is there internal issues that should worry the fan? Regard to the club's stability and path forward, what is your take? We did kind of talk about this already in the beginning.
We don't, and we may never. Again, it's up to the club to be transparent. I think Defiance will get some additional details at some point because otherwise they're rioting, right? There's no flags, there's no drums. Some sort of chaos will ensue, and they owe answers to them as the most passionate core group, the backbone.
Even if it's just some sort of kind of PC kind of answer like, hey, we were not happy with X, Y, and Z or something.
Yeah, but will we ever know the whole thing? No, we aren't entitled to it. And listen, the FO would have eventually had to have announced this. I'm willing to bet that they wanted the replacement ready so that they could just make it sound like, hey, we found this great opportunity for Brett Luy, so we're moving him, and we already have the backfill because we knew that this was a move we wanted to do. I think that if they had had another week or two to announce it, they could have even announced the name and maybe not brought them in. Listen, we'll see. We'll see how the dominoes fall. This we're all living in the moment, and we just kind of got to get through it. And right now, the focus is on the next game day and see what those outcomes are and how the team adjusts to those moments. Brendan writes in honor of this weekend's visit of Louisville City to take on RIFC, what would you suggest are the best food pairings, respectively, with Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve 20-year-old bourbon or FQB's Kick in the Can trunk wine? Absent food, what are the optimal scenarios for enjoying each? Do you see what you've started?
So I wasn't familiar with Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve 20-year-old bourbon. I looked it up. Do you know about this?
I know it's I've had one neat pour in a really weird bar in Reno, Nevada one time.
Nice.
And it was the last of the bottle, and the guy gave us the bottle after. And the bottle itself is a collector's thing that you can buy for $40. So I don't know where the 20-year-old ranks, but at this point, if you're asking, send us a bottle and we'll experiment. But don't ask us that question and assume that we can afford that. We're definitely on the trunk wine side of our income and disposable income, given how much we put into the club and into this podcast. So, if you want to give us a bottle and gift it, I'll give you the address in the DMs. You can send that, right away.
What pairs well with fancy, expensive bourbon? Probably
more bourbon.
More bourbon?
Yeah.
Maybe, a really nice cut of steak or something. What goes great with trunk wine?
I know you're about to tell me.
Hot wieners all the way.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. We win that game tomorrow. We're going to Onyville afterwards and celebrating with all the ways. We're taking our out of town friend, our tourist, with us. He's going to get the Rhode Island experience. So anyone that wants to meet us after the game, we'll be an hour or so. We can't get there right after, but if you want to meet us there for victory wieners, I swear we are going there if we win. We may even go there if we don't win. I don't know. It depends on how hungry we are and stuff.
Yeah,
but
we'll see how he's feeling.
That's going to happen.
Okay, Mouse here. I'd like more information about transfers. How do they work? What sort of war chest does RIFC have? Can we sell players? That sort of stuff.
The cool thing about this league, and Mouse, you understand this more because you're in the real soccer land, I like to call it. This league operates the same way any other league operates. There's no caps, there's no discovery rights, there's no single league entity that owns contracts.
There's no weird MLS nonsense.
Yeah, so there are windows, but outside of that, we can, unless it's free agency, we can pick up players as we choose. In terms of the war chest, I'd say there's negative dollars in it at this point. I think we definitely, with Chico, I still don't think Chico is part of the plan.
We went all out on this starting team here.
Yeah, so I think that everyone we've picked up since then have been academy or younger players that have been able to kind of evolve their game. So I think we spent the last dollar we had on Chico. That this loan business with Jack Panayiotou, it was good business for both clubs. In terms of selling players, we can, and I do think, like we mentioned earlier, I think Holstead and Fuson are if we have options on these players, I think they're the first ones you could start to socialize amongst agents and other teams. We could do that too, but like in terms of value, if we want to be in the business of developing players and moving them on, I think those are the two earliest prospects that show, and Jackson Lee. So those three players are the ones. But when do we sell them? Like, when do we go after that money? What was $1 million for Josh out of Louisville to Benfica? That's the highest, and I think the average we sell is like 150,000 to 200. So the cool thing is, without a single entity, you get all that money to put back in your club. But like, what do you go after?
Worry about MLS taking it all. So we do have a transfer window coming up here, July 18th to August 14th. I just don't know if we're going to see any business.
We would only be reactionary, like
depending on
need, an injury.
If the team is maybe not where we want it to be, or someone is playing so lights out that they come knocking with a big offer, and we can't say no.
Yeah, if someone wants Jackson Lee now, like you may have to talk shop, right? Like that's the end of the day. But that will all come. The real question is, does this club want to already start getting into the business of selling players, or do they want to keep them and try to like create that core stability, get those people gelled, and like then you're only making small piece changes versus reinventing your squad every year. So we'll learn that as we go.
I'd ask Brett, but
Nate the Great finally got on the Discord, so he finally was able to ask us a question, and he writes in, "Hi, Anchor's up. My question is, what are your 2 cents on the first 10 games overall of their performance? We're 1-6-3.
We have seen some very good performances, but there is still more I'd like to see out of them. I'm kind of maybe giving them somewhat of a pass because of a lot of the injury concerns. We've only seen JJ on the field at this point for maybe 40 minutes. So
can we just sum it up with that meme? Sometimes we're good. Sometimes
the Jose Mourinho. Yeah, I think that's actually perfect. Sometimes good, sometimes bad.
And then Andrew H. writes in, to Mouse's excellent question, what kind of salary caps or collective bargaining exists for the USL? Could we go and sign the likes of Weston McKennie? He's just picking a name out of thin air. If we wanted to.
So there is a collective bargaining agreement that currently is going until 2027. We have minimums for players. So they currently make around $35K a year. I forget what that is, because this is only for a 10-month span. It's not for the whole year. I think it comes out to like $2,200 or something. Up until 2027, that is going to increase to $2,500 per month.
Is there per diem built into that, like their housing and stuff, or is that separate?
I don't know if it's per club, but I know that RIFC is housing the players. So although that sounds low, if you think that, let's say you're spending anywhere, with rents and mortgages right now are out of control, an extra, just say 10 to 20, think of it as someone maybe making around 50K. That's actually not that bad, especially if they're like feeding you too. If you have a lot of your basic needs met, you can kind of just, put some of that money away, or I don't know, buy the newest Nikes, whatever you want to do.
So what I'm hearing is we're going to sign Weston McKennie for $35,000. So you heard it here first. Raising Anchor exclusive.
He's on the way. I could not find any caps. It doesn't seem like this league is that kind of, we are not the MLS nonsense, but there is a reality to the teams. If they wanted to splash the cash, they probably could. I don't think you're going to see stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know Weston McKennie's age off the top of my head. Maybe in a few years when he's kind of getting towards the end of his career, maybe we could see him. But it's unlikely we're going to see those type of signings here in the USL.
Hope not. Speaking of things we may see this weekend, I know you're going to talk about the game day events coming up, but Ed Sheeran is in town today when this releases for Boston Calling. Ed Sheeran, main sponsor for Brett Johnson's Ipswich Town. He could fly out of Providence like a lot of popular people. Hey, listen.
Calling it here.
I don't know if he'll be at the game, but what if he wore like a Rhode Island FC kit at Boston Calling? Or like what if we see like a social post of them handing it off? That would be incredible. But if Ed Sheeran does come to the game.
That's how you get those activations.
Right? Like
that's worldwide activations too. Like, see, we can solve.
I should be the
problems for
president.
club.
I should just be the president of the
hire
club.
us.
You're
We'll,
right.
we'll be co-presidents. We'll keep each other in check. Pay me in hats or something. I don't know. I heard there's a bunch of new ones.
There's that new camo hat coming out for the game. Yeah, that's and we're not even trying to plug that, but yeah, you do love your hats.
Yeah, we'll get this figured out, guys.
So
Have faith.
we look forward to everyone coming out for this game on Saturday, May 25th. It is our Memorial Day game to support, celebrate, and honor all active and former active veteran and people who've given their life to service in the defense of our country. Really looking forward to everyone coming out for that. The game is at 4 p.m. It's going to be amazing weather. You can get to the parking lot as early as 1 p.m. Looking forward to seeing and meeting a bunch of people. The game is close to sell out according to the club. I wouldn't be surprised if they announce it by the time you hear this podcast. If you can't watch the game in person, it will be on ESPN Plus. Listen, I'm going to be there for a good time no matter what. We're going to be fans this time around, so we will not be doing media coverage. Won't be Kano is going to miss us. Let's get honest. He's really going to be sad when we don't show up. But I'm just looking forward to it. I've just been pumped for this. I don't know why. I have a good feeling.
Have to write the questions ahead of time and just give them to someone else. This is what we would have asked.
We'll text Jake from the Providence Journal, like, hey, get these questions in on our behalf.
Yeah, he knows what's going on. So with Defiance going in person to Hartford, the guild is probably not going to be a thing. Maybe if a few random people show up, who knows? But so the club has confirmed that there will be an away watch party at Moniker. So look for more info coming from them soon on that.
Yeah, they need to drop all of the events for 5 to 6 weeks, especially with the summer. A lot of people are going to be planning their entire weekend getaways or what they're going to be doing. Not to call the club out while they're going through some turmoil, but they need to get all of the those 5-week series out of things going on.
Told 2 days before.
Yeah,
I think.
And that game will be at 7:00. So if you are not coming to the game, we will miss you, and we will cheer in your honor. But you can go watch it at Moniker at 7:00, or you can watch it. I think it's going to be on that. That one's again weird. That game is probably going to be one of the most televised games in terms of USL Curb Appeal, and it's on Nessun and ESPN Plus. It's not a CBS game.
Maybe they
really
just didn't predict the the ferocity.
They'll use that in all of their promotional reels for the rest of the year, and then whatever happens when they come to us. But anyways, let's get out of here.
All right, so you can follow us on Twitter, Threads, and TikTok at RFC Podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor. You can email us at raisinganchorpodcast@gmail.com, and then we have a website, www.raisinganchorpodcast.com. Really quick, I have here something for a good friend of ours, FQB. Hey, Matt, do you know how tides work?
I know that they come in and then they go out.
So it's, to just kind of quickly summarize it, it's a combination between the gravitational pull of the moon and the rotation of the Earth. So that's caught influencing the oceans as the Earth is turning. So you get higher tides closer to the moon. And then on the opposite side of the Earth, you also have high tides as well. So we can actually predict these tides with a very high level accuracy. But you know what we can't do? We can't control them. But you know what we can control, Matt?
I'm pretty sure we can control anchors.
Yeah, so we can control whether or not we decide to drop our anchor, or subsequently raise them as we embrace our agency to navigate these dangerous waters.
So if I'm understanding you, it sounds like you're trying to tell me that when someone says up the tide, they have no control over that. But when we say anchors up, that's something very realistic that can be done.
Yeah, it's like they're praying for rain or something. I don't know.
Wow. They're really desperate with that up the tide, aren't they? Hey, anchors up, buddy.
Anchors up.